My audience. Interesting. Hmm. All right. There we have viewers showing up. It's nice to connect with everybody again. We'll just wait for a few more folks. I know you were expecting Sandy, but even though it's Wednesday, and yes, you don't have the day wrong. Hi, Patty. It is Wednesday, but we are minus our Sandy today. She's taking the day off. So you have me. And I am glad to see everybody tuning in. It's been a few days since we've had a chance to visit, and I think we've got a little bit of a project for you today. Hi, Teresa. Glad you could join us. There's Robin joining us from Maryland. I wish I could see people, you know. It's really nice to be able to put a face to a name sometimes, but names will do, and I'm glad you're here with us. Yes, Wednesday afternoon at my sewing room. If you're new to our video feed, to our recorded videos, I'm Barb. I work in the long arm area, and it's like all about sewing the layers of fabric together. So, before we jump into a fun little project I've lined up for you today, you can probably see that great line of fabric behind me, new in, and it is called Fall Impromptu. It's fall. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna look because my memory did not last long enough to remember. Fall Potpourri. And I was thinking, it's kind of nice to see a fall lineup of fabric that is not black and orange. So yes, this has some black in it, but it's also got some gold accents on a nice kind of a wood grainy cream background. So if you want to do a few fall table runners or placemats or even a whole fall quilt that's not the traditional black and orange, but is a little more sophisticated, a little bit more, I think a little bit more modern maybe, then you've got a really good selection in this line. And I think Chelsea's added a few of our little grunge fabrics here. This one and the polka dot, that they go nicely together. They've got that gold accent. So that'll jazz up your Thanksgiving or your Halloween table. So that's what we have set out there. I kind of like it. And I kind of like the fact that we can show you the new fabrics even before they hit the floor. Kind of gives you first run at them if it's something you particularly want. So, like I said, for my day job, it's all about sewing the layers of fabric together. Most often I'm working on the big long arm machines or teaching a certification this afternoon. So a lovely lady is now able to rent time on the long arm. That works for a lot of people. But what if you just want to do your quilting at home? Sometimes we have trouble coming up with the ideas of what to quilt on our quilt. And more to the point, how do we get the ideas out of here and onto the fabric? So I'm going to show you a way of doing that it's been around for quite a while, but it's almost old school. They do keep improving it, and that is using stencils to transfer design onto your quilt. The nice thing about this is it's repeatable. So if you have 12 blocks in your quilt or 20 blocks in your quilt, they will all be the same. So let's introduce you to some of the products that we would use. Very, very simple. Here's the first one. It's a stencil. I think that's showing fairly well on the screen there. This one happens to be butterflies. It's one of my ones I have in the long arm area. There's a whole tray, ta-da, of stencils. They come and they go, so we can't always guarantee that we have the same designs, but it's definitely worth looking through. But how do you use it? It's just a little piece of plastic with spaces cut in it. You could even make your own. But a lot of times the commercial stencils, they're a little rough on the back, they're going to cling to your fabric kind of nicely, and they're very, very easy to use. So you have your stencil. Now what do you need? Everybody's probably heard of this and didn't really know how to use it. This is your Pounce Powder. And it comes in 3 colors. This one is the, I think this is the white. Why does it not say? The white Pounce. And it is iron off to remove, or it will wash off as well. It also comes, though, in pink, because maybe you have a white quilt that you want to mark. The pink powder is a wash out chalk, so that the different colors have to be treated a little bit differently. So this is the washout in the pink, and then this one is the washout in the blue. So you can brush it off, and you're going to get to see how easily it actually brushes off. Or you can wash it out, or with the white one, it will also iron off, like that. So what do you get in this package? You get a little bag of chalk powder, and you get one of these little applicator pads. So if I carefully open it up, you can see it's almost a fuzzy, it reminds you of the old face powder pads, a little fuzzy pad like that, container tray, and your powder goes inside in here. Pop that off and fill it with powder. Now I'm going to move you to the top view, because there's my fabric, there's my stencil. Despite the fact that it's called Pounce, we're not going to pounce it, because that's going to make a real mess. So we're going to take our little box and just refresh it a bit by giving it a bit of a tap. And then we're going to open it up, set that aside, and I'm going to hold the stencil still, and I'm just going to take this and brush it across the surface of the stencil. Just give it a wipe like that. There we go. All the way out to the edge. And that's it. Now when I remove my stencil, look at that. There's a nice clear marking of a butterfly design. You can see I've rubbed a bit on here. Let's give it a brush. So already that is starting to come out. We don't want to disturb this too much. I'm not going to take a queen size quilt and mark all of the blocks at the same time. I'm going to do them one by one. But because I'm using the stencil, I know that each block is going to be the same. So let's quilt our little butterflies and see what happens when we actually stitch through it. So, as usual, we've got our free motion foot. I'm using white thread because I think it's going to show up nicely on the blue fabric. And the key with any sort of design that you mark on your quilt top is you have to think of the lines as guidelines. They're just suggestions. It doesn't mean that you can't go outside the line, and it doesn't mean that you have to stitch every line that is marked on there. This is a nice design. I'm going to try and stitch every line. So let's get started. With free motion, a nice even speed with your foot pedal and a nice even speed with your hands. So you can see that sometimes I'm on the line and sometimes I'm a little bit off, but that's okay. Close enough. You can see how the chalk is migrating as I quilt this, getting a little bit fuzzy. It's still quite easy to see where I'm going. But all of that is going to come off. Now I need to stop because I want to move that thread out of the way. Actually, I think I'm going to just snip it off. And I'm just going to finish off like that and cut my threads. There we go. Okay, so quilted. Let's give that chalk a bit of a brush. See how clean we can get it without using the iron. So if I rub it with my hand, already that's coming off. Look at that. I could be a little more aggressive, lighten it even further. But then the ultimate would be if I were to take an iron, press this down nicely, all of that white would disappear and I would be left just with the quilted butterflies. Now at this point, I can leave it as is. I could go back, and now that I have an image, I could outline like this if I wanted more quilting. I could get really dense and do some fill inside the spaces. I could put another little image, maybe with colored thread in the butterfly wings. Most of the stencils, I'm going to show you another one here, especially the bigger ones, you can use not just in blocks, but I've got this one here that does a feather design. So you can see on the stencil, hopefully you can see, it's got like registration marks on it here. This is going to help you line up where you want the stencil to move further along your quilt. So let's say I was doing this in a border. These lines would let me then rotate. In fact, let's just do that. You know what I'm going to do? I am going to take my pounce and I'm just going to mark those two little lines right there. First off, got a little, yep, we have a little smudge there. Now let's pretend this is a huge quilt. Now I can turn my stencil after I've got that marked, and I can line up those two little marks with this, and now I have that flow to go all the way around a border on that design. So in this instance, you could mark, a section of a border, get it quilted, and then move, mark again. This looks like a fun one. I wonder how far we should go with it. Again, we're not pouncing the chalk, we're just wiping it. Just wipe it across the surface. I have a feeling mine's getting a little low, so when it needs recharging, just give it a little tap. Wipe it down this way. There we are. Ta-da, the big reveal. There we are. So now we can quilt feathers. I love doing feathers. I would look at this, if you can see that design, and I'm going to say, all right, first of all, before I get started, I'm going to have to figure out my path. Which way do I want to go? So I'm going to start here at the bottom and travel up the spine, maybe to this point. Then I'm going to do my feathers, just like that, all the way down to here. And then I'm probably going to do what we call a jump stitch. Let's do it, and I can show you a jump stitch. They're kind of fun. It's how you move around without stitching. Okay. Back here, so we are going to start with the spine of our feather. This is quite a large image for a piece like this, and I would recommend, if you're going to tackle something this size, that you have a nice extended table on your sewing machine just to help support the fabric. There we go. Get ready. Zoom. So always stop when you want to reposition your hands. Stop. And yeah, maybe we'll go to there. And I don't have to rotate this, but I like to be able to see where I'm going. So sometimes I will swing it around. Stopping there. So now I'm going to make the feathers. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I like fancy feathers. These are very nice. They're very perfectly formed feathers. I like my feathers fancy. So just because you have the stencil image down doesn't mean you can't embellish it. Oh, running out of arm length. There we go. Oh, there we go. I think this is a good way to show you the difference. So just because you have a stencil that has a particular shape on it, doesn't mean you can't ad-lib some of your own design into that shape. So whether you want to do plain feathers or fancy feathers, plain butterflies, or jazz them up a little bit, you have the guidelines, you have the shape, and that's a feather that anybody can accomplish on your quilt. I think it looks pretty good. I should have plugged in an iron so I could show you how that irons off, but you can probably imagine that it's going to disappear. I think it would be fun to try doing some of these shapes with a heavier thread as well. But that's how simple it is to get designs onto your quilt using stencils. And we've got a pretty good selection of stencils right now. I wanted to show you a different kind of stencil though, and I'm just going to pull them out like that. Those pesky straight lines, hey? So these are two different stencils. One has an on-point grid on it, and I think this is about a 1-inch grid. This is a straight grid, and you use them exactly the same way. I'm not going to open these guys. You stroke your Pounce powder through it, but now what you have is a grid to line something up, to do your own thing. You could quilt within each little square, or you could simply use that to outline a shape. Maybe you love the modern look and you want to quilt squares or straight lines, and even with a walking foot on your sewing machine, that's really hard to do. So this is going to give you that grid guideline for your quilting so that you can get things lined up perfectly. You could use this. I'm going to use my scissors to point. A grid like this, you can do a wavy line through the intersections like this. Come back this way, and you've got a lovely orange peel shape across your quilt with no effort at all. So a guideline, a grid, a cheater's way of doing it. So very, very handy when you're laying things out. And that's quilting with stencils. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's a really, really good way of getting a design onto your quilt that lets you follow a design, repeat it as many times as you want. Next to nothing for cleanup. If you find your stencils, maybe you've used the blue on one quilt and you want to use that stencil for the white, it's just a piece of plastic. You can give it a little rinse off, wipe it down. No problem on that one. So give it a try. Let me know how you like it. Come burrow through our little tray here for some of the fun images that we've got. Yeah, everything's really different. There's one. That one could be kind of interesting. Hold that up like that. That looks almost like oak leaves. So very conducive to our fall quilting that we're getting into. So that's what I have for you today, folks. Hopefully you'll have the opportunity to come and visit us soon, pick up some of the new fabrics. There's still more stuff coming in all the time. Have a look at our website and check out some of the classes that are now scheduled. I know Leah still has some classes lined up. And Patchwork in Paradise, first class next Tuesday morning. Oh, we should all be nice and fresh for that one instead of later on in the afternoon. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Hopefully Sandy will be back for next week. I love her wacky Wednesdays and her jokes. Yeah, I'm not sure where she gets them all, but I'm going to write some of them down. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the weather we have outside, because we know it's going to change pretty soon. And better get started on those fall projects. Thank you, and we will see you next time.